How's it going, guys? This is Ryo Mortal based in Tokyo. So this is a rather unique video because my channel is oriented towards film photography. I rarely talk about like digital. However, during the period of May 23 to May 25, a super short period of time, an event happened called Shimokita Shudder, which happened on bonus track. And bonus track, for people who do not know, is located between, it's sort of like an alley that locates in between Shimokitazawa station and Setagaya Daida station on the Odakyu Dentetsu line, if I'm right. But within this sort of like area and one spot, actually, Fujifilm was actually releasing the X-Half camera to the public, and it was sort of like an event where you can touch and try and feel and try the new X-Half camera, which was about to be released to the public. And I basically had my smartphone just fall off from the stand, but what happened was that I was able to get an opportunity to basically touch and try the X-Half camera for roughly 10 minutes or so, just rented it out. And I thought it would be nice to sort of like talk about that camera, the characteristics, and along with that, my sort of like feedback, my opinion of this camera, because it is a completely new digital camera in this digital space. And for people who do not know, Fujifilm recently released this camera called the X-Half, which shoots half-frame images, actually, in vertical orientation. And what makes this camera, I guess, really unique in its like space is, from my viewpoint, is the size. And if you've ever seen any kind of photo, or I'll stick in some BTS for you guys, but the camera is by far the smallest camera that Fujifilm has ever made in the past, if I'm right. And it spots around 240 grams. And for people who do not know, I think iPhone weighs around 200 grams. The Pentax 17 weighs 290 grams, so it's like 50 grams lighter than the Pentax 17 with the lens included, which is already attached to the camera. But what's also rather intriguing about this camera is the aesthetics, the outer sort of like design, which in my opinion looks as if they mashed together a Leica M6, Nikon 35, and a Contax T3. If they mashed three people together, and I should not go into details, but if they mashed all those together and divided by 3 maybe, you get the X-Half, and it just looks similar to a Contax camera in my opinion, and maybe a Konica C35. It is a rangefinder camera, and what's also rather intriguing about this camera is it uses a 1-inch sensor in the vertical orientation, but the sensor itself, if I'm right, I was looking at the dimension, it's like 13.3 by 8 by 8. So the sensor itself is in the horizontal orientation, but once you shoot the photo, it kind of, I think it turns it to the vertical orientation. It kind of records into that format, and it only has 17 megapixels, which is not too much in my opinion, but because it's a half frame, you don't get that much of a high expectation. Okay, getting into the details, the camera itself uses a 10.8mm lens, which on the 35mm front, it becomes roughly 32mm f2.8. The shutter speed can go up to 1/2000 of a second. It uses a mechanical shutter and leaf shutter, which was something I picked up on, and I wasn't able to get the details. However, leaf shutters typically can sync a flash up to 1/500th of a second. I'm not sure if that is true, but probably it can go up to that. So if you shoot with a flash, this is really nice in my opinion. And I can't cover so many because already so many people made videos on reviews, but I will just cover the main characteristics, 3 of them that I picked up on. And one is a back panel. Normally when you shoot with a digital camera, the LCD screen on the back panel of the camera is in horizontal orientation. The X-Half is, on the other hand, is in vertical orientation. So honestly, this is just my biased opinion, but the resolution of that vertical screen isn't that high, so it's hard to actually tell if the photo's in focus. It's like similar to shooting with a X Pro 3 or something. It's like kind of hard to view the images. And also on the left side of the back panel, there's another LCD screen which you can basically toggle or switch in between the sort of like the film simulations. So if you swipe it up or swipe it down, you can basically change it to classic chrome, classic, pro negs, standard, and stuff like that. So that's actually nice to see. And normally Fujifilm has a dial at the top left where you can basically change the film simulation, or you also have to go into the menu to change the film simulations, but this is like really intuitive in my mind. And on the top right, there's a film winding kind of mechanism, which if you wind it once, you get a sort of like a split image similar to shooting with a film camera. So your first image and second image will be split with borders. So that's actually nice in my opinion. And also there's a neat functionality where you can basically force the camera to not show you the image that you shot, but you have to keep shooting the 72 exposures. And once you shoot the 72 exposures, you can basically view them afterwards, similar to as if you're shooting with a half frame camera. So that's you can basically toggle around the how many like exposures you can shoot, and after you shoot that specific exposure, you can basically view the image. So that's actually neat. In addition to unviewable exposures that you shot, 72 exposures, you can also add effects such as sort of like filters such as light leaks, expired film, grain effects, nostalgic date stamps to your likings to sort of like simulate that film-like experience. Okay, so getting the specs, the characteristics out of the way now, my honest opinion of this camera, but I might go a little bit off topic, but I view this as sort of like a clear company statement that they will probably not come back to the film arena. And this is due to the fact that this X-Half is a revolutionary camera in a sense that it's the first camera to incorporate half frame onto the digital front. However, this is basically, how should I say, the second camera from Fujifilm that has a film, or how should I say, pushing film users away from the film arena towards digital, because if you guys recall, Fujifilm previously made a medium format GFX camera called the RF, and if you guys know about that camera specifically, what's significant about that camera itself is pushing medium format users away from shooting with film towards the digital side, because what's significant about the RF digital camera, medium format digital camera, is that you can basically toggle the what I call the aspects ratio to the various medium format film stocks. So you can basically change it to X-Pan, and also you can change it to 6x6 Hasselblad. You can also change it to 6x7, and all that's like Mamiya RZ RB series and the Mamiya 7, and also this format that I use, GFX GW 690, which shoots by 6x9 format. And also you can also shoot 6x8 if I'm right. So that camera specifically was aimed towards medium format film users. To go away from medium format towards the digital side, please use a GFX RF. And this time around, half frame film users are being pushed from that arena. And I guess this is sort of like a forked road that's starting to emerge, and people are starting to grasp it. But there's manufacturers such as Pentax that's making the Pentax 17 that wants users to come back to film, shoot because we released a new film camera. Please use it. Please appreciate the the cultural heritage of film. There's people like that. While Fujifilm's like pushing the majority of people to shoot with mirrorless. If you shoot with a half frame, if you think it's like really expensive shooting film, please use the X-Half. So this is sort of like a forked road that Fujifilm is constantly pushing forwards, and I guess this is like the way that they want to move their company, because we have to understand that for Fujifilm, like making film is becoming, I guess, a burden, a sort of like a corporate burden in terms of like maintaining the cost and stuff like that. And I'm going a little bit off topic, but the price of film for Kodak's side is actually going down in Japan, in Tokyo right now. I might dedicate a video on that topic, and that's sort of like pushing Fujifilm off a cliff right now in their film business. So right now, I guess they're trying to force the masses to shoot with their system, because creating mirrorless cameras and like selling them is much more lucrative as their sort of like business portfolios. So getting back onto topic, the price wise is roughly $700 to $800, so it's a little bit more expensive than the Pentax 17. However, it's not as expensive as another rival that I would think, which is the GR3 from Ricoh, which costs like $1,000, close to $1,000 in Japan. So this like X-Half camera is a really unique camera in its arena, because it's not a film camera but it's not a full APS-C digital camera like the GR or the other types of cameras that Fujifilm makes, but it kind of sits in this sort of like niche area, and probably know that they won't sell a lot. However, we have to like take into account that they are focused on people who want to shoot with film but don't want to go to, I guess, the processing locations, and it's kind of a hassle to do that. So I guess in a way this basically kind of sort of like strikes the good balance in terms of like, instead of shooting with film but they don't want to shell so much money for a digital camera, it kind of hits that type of people and the customers. And also, and on top of that, there's like a lot of people, elderly people, who actually visited this bonus track event, especially like people in their 50s and 60s. So people in like in the age group above mine, I guess their first camera might have been a half frame. And back in the days, the reason why half frame cameras existed was that it was much more easier to shoot with 35mm, like 36 exposures, because the running cost is much more lower. Thus, it was not much of a hassle to like, shoot with a half frame, because you can basically shoot ordinary like objects, subjects, and things that kind of came into mind without like spilling out a ton load of money. So I guess this kind of strikes those types of age groups, and also people who are new to photography, people who are used to shooting with sort of like smartphone cameras which shoot in vertical orientation. And in this era of time where everything is like shot for social media, I guess it makes some kind of relevance in our society. And because companies like Fujifilm are trying to push themselves to go in a new direction compared to the larger camera companies such as Sony, Nikon, and Canon, this is like a really brand new, I guess, marketing strategy, and also, how should I say, company's corporate strategy of trying to gain attention towards the smaller type of groups who are like into film photography. And I'm trying to end this video as fast as possible, but I'll stick in, like I said in the earlier part of the video, I think what's really significant about this camera is not the format, it's more like the weight, in my opinion, because this camera, like I said, weighs 240 grams. I'll stick in a diagram actually, but as a reference, Pentax 17 weighs 290 grams. Konica C35, which currently own rangefinder, lightweight in my opinion, weighs 380 grams. Nikon FG20 weighs 440 grams. Leica M6 weighs 515 grams if I'm right. Nikon F3, which is the heaviest camera that I own, weighs 715 grams. And I have to admit that probably this 250 grams to 400 grams is that sweet spot in terms of what I would consider a lightweight camera. And if it's like 200 to 300 grams, it's a camera that you don't have to consciously think that, oh great, I have to bring a camera, that kind of mindset. And that's actually, I guess, a turning point in terms of weight. That 400 grams or heavier than that is that the person who's carrying that camera has to think, okay, I have to bring a camera, which means I have to bring a sort of like a camera bag or something like that, I guess. And that kind of, in a way, for some people might be a major turnoff. And I guess Fujifilm was trying to aim towards those types of people who want to bring a camera, but they don't want to bring something that's like heavy, bulky, and like really a pain in the ass to just bring it out. So I guess that's this like mindset of hitting that core need might be the reason why a lot of people who are in that field go for the Contax T2, T3, Konica C35 that I currently use and love because of its size and form factor, and not to mention the Pentax 17, which is still hard to get by right now. I guess Fujifilm wanted to fulfill that sort of like group, which they never approached in the recent types of digital camera. And yeah, I guess this is a really nice camera, and I have to admit the research and development department of Fujifilm might had some kind of like backlash on this idea of half frame because they had never made this camera before. However, for some odd reason, they kind of, I guess, the top boss said, okay, let's make this happen, and they basically made this camera come true to life. And this is kind of really interesting on the Fujifilm's user base, that they're making cameras that appeal towards a niche type of photographers, especially the GFX RF. Only a portion of people will probably buy that camera, and similar to the X-Half, only a portion of people will like use that camera. However, what's great about this camera is that when I visited the event at bonus track, there were a lot of like 50s and 60-year-olds who were like curious about the X half, and those people, I guess, when they started out in photography, probably might have picked up a Olympus pen half, or maybe a trip camera, or no wait, Pentax pen half, sorry, or an Olympus trip 35, or maybe a Ricoh auto half back in the days, because film people who started out in film photography or photography, shooting 36 exposures might have been really expensive, so people shot with half frame back in the days. So this camera, in a way, like appeals towards those elderly like generations, and also new generations who are shooting in vertical orientation most of the time for social media. So in a way, this hits a great spot for those types of users. And for people like me who already own two mirrorless Fujifilm cameras, I'm kind of skeptical if I would ever buy this camera, but it's great to know that Fujifilm themselves are trying to push forward in this camera sort of like history by producing something really, I guess, meaningful for our society. So yeah, that's basically it on my coverage of talking about the X half and ranting as usual. Okay, that's basically it on my coverage of talking about the X half. If I were to add on to that, one important thing is that I know it's great to release new cameras, the X half, and they're going to be releasing a new camera in the coming years to come, or this year if I'm right, the XE5. But it's good to see that happen. However, they need to focus on the current lineup of cameras, especially the XM5, because that camera, which is really popular in Japan, there's like some cameras, digital camera mirrorless, that you can't get your hands on. They don't have any stock. I mean, it's good to have new products rolling, but please stock up on the previous cameras that you guys release, because there's these people who feel betrayed that they can't get the camera that they want. And I know it's a marketing thing. It's like a sort of like a sales thing kind of thing, because if they previously relearned that if they produce too many cameras, they have to like shave off the retail price, and they're basically doing the opposite right now. They're basically selling far less than the demand. So and the people who can't buy the Fujifilm products are basically purchasing cameras from different manufacturers. That's basically an opportunity lost, business profit lost actually in that case. So hopefully they can fix that, because some of their cameras, especially the XM5, which I'm trying to get my hands on, I can't even like contact the distributors when that camera will come into stock. So that's something sad in a way, but hopefully they can fix that before releasing the X half cameras. And probably if the X half becomes a hit, probably the same thing will happen. They won't have any stocks in stores. So hopefully they can fix that in a short period of time. So yeah, that's basically it on my coverage of the X half, talking about the X half. I'm kind of curious about the film users, the film arena, my subscribers who regularly shoot with film. What's your take on this camera? If you ever used it, if you ever tried it, I would love to hear from you guys, your opinion on this camera. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Or I don't know, you're kind of iffy on this format. But honestly, I wish they can make a sort of like a APS-C camera in the exact same dimension as the X half. That would be really nice in my opinion. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, found it informative, and yeah, we will see you next time. Peace out.